resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Hello, my next level friends. Welcome to a new episode of the Artist Next Level podcast. I am super excited that you are joining us today. And I say us because I'm sitting here with none other than Dr. Yanina Gomez. Hello, Yanina. How are you?
I am doing very well. How are you?
I am super excited to have you here. As always, we always have a good conversation.
I know. I love being in the podcast. Maybe I should be here more often.
Exactly. I need to talk to the boss upstairs, see what they say. But my friends, today we want to talk about a topic that is very, very common, very important in our art career. And it's such a great topic that we decided to split it into 2 episodes because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
And there's a lot that we can say about that. And this is one of those things that we are very passionate about as well. And this is the idea of balance, balance, the idea of balancing work, your studio, practice, whatever other work you might do, life, your family, your friends, the business activities that we all have to do, such as manage your social media, manage your website, contracts, etc., proposals, all that stuff. How do we balance all that out? And so there's a lot to talk about on this one. And Yana, if I tell you what's the question that I'm asked the most when I meet artists in an opening or at an event, is the question of, Sergio, how do you manage, to have a family with 2 kids, to run your studio practice, to be involved in higher education, to run a podcast, a community, a gallery, and also manage the exhibitions of an art center? How in the world do you do that?
Without losing your mind.
That's right. That's correct. And, it is true that sometimes it's very difficult. And when I had this question asked, some years ago, I used to say, well, I don't know how I do it. I just do it. But then over the years, I've been thinking more about this idea, this topic. And then I started to think about, well, maybe it's time management. And then I started answering that question, well, it's about time management, how I use my time. Well, more recently, I have continued to think about that, and now my answer has shifted a little bit. I don't think it's as much as time management because, well, we all have the same amount of hours, right? We all have 24 hours in a day, and I used to be one of those people that, I was always amazed to see somebody in the public view that, would be an author, would be a speaker, would be will be a CEO, will be all these different things. And it's like, how in the world can they do it? I had the same question.
And the truth is, how can you even manage time? Something
Exactly.
that it keeps on going and continues and you
Right.
have no control over.
Exactly. We feel like some people have more hours than others,
Right.
but we don't.
It's
Right?
a perception, yes.
We are all under the same curse, which is called time, or blessing, depends how you see it. So this idea of balancing work, life, business, it is very important for us here at the Art Next Level because it's something that often you and I, we talk about, and we work with artists on an ongoing basis. And a lot of times artists come to us and they feel overwhelmed. They feel overwhelmed because they have to do all these things in their career. Well, besides your family and all those activities, you have to work with your emails, all your to-dos for your career, your studio practice, your social media management. You are the marketing person of your career. You are your own studio manager for most of the time. You have to work with other people. So you have all these roles or hats, like some people might say it. And that could lead to frustration and overwhelm. And actually, a lot of artists that come to us, they are overwhelmed because they say, I don't know how I can do this and be successful at what I do when I have this pile of stuff on me. One of the graphics actually that I like to sometimes share in social media, that I don't know where I got it once, I downloaded somewhere, is like this little guy with all these boxes on top of him, and each box has a different thing to do related to their career, like taxes or making the art or phone
Marketing,
calls,
sales.
marketing, all this other stuff. So I'm sure as we're talking about this idea of overwhelm and trying to avoid overwhelm and living a balanced life is something that probably most of us and most of our friends here in the podcast who listen to this podcast can relate to.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm definitely.
I venture to say that probably a very minimal number of our audience does actually have time to sit down and listen to the podcast in a quiet, nice, with coffee in one hand, looking at the birds. And probably everybody is running. Most people I talk to, they listen to the podcast while in their car, while they're working in the studio, while doing other things. And that's exactly also how I consume information. So, and I think that's because we live in this kind of rat race, right? That we have all been infected by, where it seems like now more often, and I'm as guilty as that as anyone else, when I go to an opening or a social event and I'm talking to a friend who I haven't seen or an artist I haven't seen, I was, how are you? I'm busy. How are you? Oh, I'm busy too. And like busy is like the new replacement for I'm doing good.
Right. I think it's glorified actually.
Exactly.
It's seen to be it's perceived to be a norm, when in reality, busyness should not be a norm.
Exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So those are that's why we say, well, let's talk about this. Let's unfold this topic, and let's give our friends here at the Next Level some pointers, some strategies that they can use also to manage their time better, to avoid overwhelm, and to really try to live a life in which we are able to balance these things. And something that I have learned from you, Yanina, is that you said, well, there's no such thing as perfect balance, right? It's not this idea of 50-50, 50% this, 50% there.
No.
There's no such thing as that.
There's no such a thing. And that's going to be something that I will be going over on the second part of this podcast episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking about the misconception of living a balanced life. Because oftentimes people have this idea that in order for you to have a balanced life, you have to, like you said, divide your maybe 25% of your time is devoted for your art, 25% devoted for everything else, and 50% for your personal life, or whatever numbers you want to, or percentages you want to put in there. So in the second part, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and how that is a misconception. And but I know that you're going to be going over to two different tips or areas that you want to be sharing with our audience. And the first one is about habits.
Right, exactly. It's habits, because I used to think that it was all about time management. But then that's when I started to rethink myself, say, wait a minute, it's not just about time management. Because it's all really about habits too. That's the first thing I want to talk about. Habits, it's this idea of the practices that we do on a daily basis that will help us to be ready for the day. And people have various habits, good ones and bad ones, right?
Yes, not that great ones.
they come in both sides. I can think of some bad habits I have, and maybe you can think of more bad habits I have. You don't have any bad habits.
I'm not going to share them. Oh, we all do. I do have bad habits too.
But
and don't share them.
Oops, I just tweeted.
Oh, no.
So habits, this is something I became really purposeful about just about a year and a half ago, where I learning from other coaches, learning from other people and experts in this area, I started to think, well, what are the habits that I need to have in my own life that will make me more successful and more productive in my art career? So at the end of the day, is this idea of the things that I do in my day that relate to my work, which is my art career. It's all interconnected. So what are the habits that I need to have or not have or remove that will help me be more productive in my studio, be more efficient when I'm working in the business part of my career, when I do my podcast and so forth. And the first thing that I thought about is habits. As I was studying the life of many successful entrepreneurs and successful people in history, the habits that they had. Many of them wake up at 4 in the morning and start with a huge workout. I cannot do that.
No, me neither.
So when I talk about habits, I'm not talking about imitate other people's habits, because they might not work for you. I am more of a morning person, but I'm not a crazy morning person.
Right.
but maybe for some of you listening today, that might be the thing that you can do. Wake up super early in the morning, start your day, figure out some habits that you can start the day that will help you get the day going. Let me give you one bad habit that I used to have. Well, maybe might not sound bad to you, but I used to be a news junkie, so I would start my day with like blasting the news either on the radio or on television, and that's how my day would start. And pretty soon I realized that if all the problems that they talk about the radio, there's nothing I can do in that morning to fix them, right? Mm-hmm. They're just invading my head with thoughts, because the news is all about the bad stuff that happened during the last 24 hours, right?
They will rarely share something positive.
Exactly.
Which kind of influences your mood state.
For the day, exactly.
For the day. You start allowing all these negative influences to get on you, to invade your head, and you start your day feeling maybe frustrated or upset about what's happening. And oftentimes when you do that, what comes out is negative.
Right. Or worry. Sometimes you tend to worry about things that you cannot even change in the world at that moment. So that was a bad habit that I had to really take a look at and say, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to replace that with a good habit. So the way I start now my day is in the morning. Now I do exercise. In the summer, we like to do some running together. But then after that, then I do some reading, and I look at my goals that I have for the month and for the week and for the day. And that has completely changed how I see my day from how I used to. It has given me kind of a clear start, a more positive, outgoing. Even if things go bad in the day, at least I started with something positive.
Right. You started with a more optimistic mindset.
Right. And one of the, this I learned from Tim Ferriss, one of the kind of little things that you can do in the morning that might seem insignificant, but in a way, if you are one like me that are only into productivity, is that if you do your bed in the morning, it's like the first thing that you have already done productive for that day. So even if everything goes bad that day, at least you made your bed.
Interesting.
That's why you have seen the bed kind of nicely sometimes, although I miss it once in a while. So that's the first one, my friends. Habits. Think about your habits. When it comes to trying to avoid overwhelm, a lot of times it's overwhelm that we impose in ourselves because we have just bad habits that we need to get rid of and replace them with good ones. So
more healthy ones.
Healthy ones that will help you again push your career, get a good start for your day. Another one, which will be number 2, the second one I want to share with you today, is priorities.
Yes.
That's another huge one. Priorities, to avoid overwhelm, we have to prioritize. And this is something that I actually learned from you because I wasn't good at prioritizing, if you remember.
Yeah, back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day. I don't want to say when, but I wasn't good at prioritizing my day or my activity I was just good at prioritizing, period. So I would just do whatever came to mind and, whatever activity seemed promising that day, going with the flow. Which is not bad going with the flow, but I'm not also going to the extreme. All the extremes are bad.
Right, yes.
But we're talking about the idea of trying to find a balance that kind of works for you. And priorities is very important. Understanding your priorities. What are the things that need to be done today that will have the most effect on tomorrow?
Yes.
Everything could be a priority. That's the problem with to-do list. And you do a to-do list and everything has kind of like the same priority unless you...
The same weight.
Unless you consciously decide, well, this one has priority. This is the one thing. If I didn't get anything done today, what is the one thing I want to accomplish? And that's something that you do very well because you have your must do on that day. Although sometimes things happen, but you have that in your mind and you plan that out very well. One of the strategies that you have done successfully, and we talk about this in a different podcast, was that you have a particular theme for each day sometimes.
Right.
That kind of helps you stay on track. And so if your priority today is to write a blog post, that's what you do.
Focus on.
So
No, I was just going to say, if I have to write a blog post, everything I do is leaning it's towards that writing that post. So I will have to turn off all social media, ignore emails, and just focus on that specific task that I have set for the day. Yeah. And even so from the beginning to the end.
Even ignore some of my crazy ideas that I may have on that day.
Yes. I didn't want to mention that, but you brought it up.
And you say, today is not my day for that. And have to hold that thought for
Let's
tomorrow.
Let's talk about that tomorrow.
So priorities is very important. Also, priorities kind of helps us out when we do our goal setting. And we talked about this in the previous episode, where we talk about goal setting.
Yes.
And part of goal setting is setting up priorities and working with our priorities to see what is really important, what's going to give me more leverage in my career. Oftentimes, everything is important, but there are things that are priority.
Yeah, there are things that need to be done first in order for the other ones to fall into place. And like with me, like you said, I work by themes, and there's people that have told us that they prefer to do 3 things at a time, which is masked under the multitasking name. And one thing that I want you to take into consideration when it comes to multitasking is the fact that, our brains have this capability. We can switch from one task to another, but if you really want to give the best and you really want one specific thing to be outstanding, you really have to focus on it. It's important that you give your best to that specific thing instead of going from one task to another, because when you do that, as you are shifting your brain from one task to another, you're losing attention and you're losing focus on what you were doing on your previous task. So we have to be very careful about that multitasking approach, that oftentimes what happens is that when you put your focus and your attention on one specific task, the outcome will likely be greater than if you are doing a few things at once. So, when it comes to priorities, so identify those things that need to be done first in order for the other ones to fall into place naturally, versus trying to do everything and ending up being frustrated and tired and overwhelmed.
So that's very important. Multitasking is one of those things that it was hyped up for, in culture for so long. Kind of like it was like, oh, everybody's multitasking. And kind of being a multitasker was like a badge of honor.
Right.
Oh, I'm a multitasker. I can do 10 things at once, And
then if you take a look at what those 10 things are, when they are done, you're like, whoa, maybe you should have focused on only one.
Right.
So, things are done correctly. And I have always, I'm not very fond with multitasking, because I have seen how people kind of mask it to be something, like you said, a badge of honor. And when you take a look at the quality of the work that they bring in after multitasking, you right away can realize that, this needs to be done again. This is not to your potential, or you are not maximizing your gift because you were not putting your time, effort, energy, and concentration on one specific task. So, it's just the way it is. Keep in mind that it's your mind shifting from one task to another. And as it shifts, focus shifts, attention shifts, and probably energy shifts. All these things are shifting.
Exactly.
So, if you really want to maximize yourself, I personally encourage you to not multitask. But, some people swear by it. So, you have to find what works for you.
Yeah. The last one that I want to talk about for this particular episode, and then we're going to talk about some more in the next one, in part 2.
Then I have to apologize, because I said that we were going to go over 2. So we're going over 3.
Yeah, we're going to the third one. Yes. Yep. And the one that I want to talk over now is on social media also, managing our social media to avoid overwhelm and to kind of live a little bit healthier, more balanced way. For I think for most of us as artists, we are always reminded you gotta be in social media, you gotta post all the time so that people are attracted to your work, and those are the things that we have been preached about, left and right, or all these marketing gurus as you gotta put marketing and blah blah blah, and although that is very important, and we talk about that, the importance of being in social media and do it correctly, have a strategy for social media, it can also become one of those things that really can get the artist's mind to a point of overwhelm as well, and frustration. And we say this because we have seen it over and over again, where we have artists who come to us and they're overwhelmed, and one of those things is that they just so consumed in social media, which is now has become like this other life, other an alternative reality, that so we not only have to manage the relationships that we have in real life, but now we also have to manage all this other world that lives in the cloud, in the internet. We have to manage it, we have to feed it, we have to respond to it. So now we're living like this multiple spheres and realities, and trying to manage them out. And of course that was going to lead to overwhelm. And so some of the things that we recommend to artists is like, although we are there with all the marketers say, you have, as an artist, you have to be in social media, and you have to be strategic about how you post and when you post, and post often, and because there's a lot of good things that can happen in social media, is this idea to find tools that can help you manage your social activity.
Yes.
Something that I have done in the last year, because I became pretty addictive to social media as well, and always posting and commenting and posting, to the point that where going to openings and things, people will tell me, hey, I see you all the time in Facebook or what have you, so what I had to do is I had to find tools also that will help me manage this in a more intelligent and strategic way. So one of the tools that we shared and we talk a lot about is, for example, a tool that's called Hootsuite.
Yes.
Hootsuite is an online platform. We have no affiliation to it. We just love it. That you can connect all your social medias into one platform. So you can connect your LinkedIn, your Google Plus, your Facebook, and now your Instagram as well, and your Twitter, and all, including your artist page or other pages that you might have in Facebook, all into one platform. So rather than if you have an image that you want to share and you having to go to all these 5 different platforms and share them, you can just go to Hootsuite, upload it in Hootsuite, both either you can do it in the computer or in your phone, and select all those platforms and then share them in that way. So that has, at least for me, has relieved a lot of the overwhelm that I had managing my own social media platforms, because just like most of you, I probably who are listening, I like to be in all of them. I don't want to lose opportunities. So that has really relieved a lot of time.
And it will help you stay away from all the drama that is happening in social media, all the toxicity that is happening in social media. So it's more focused oriented, and it's also more business oriented. So you're not going there to post. The program is posting for you, so you can use that time to do other things that will help your art career grow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is true, and that happened to me so many times in the past, where I comment on a post, then somebody else comes in and keeps coming, and then the conversation might get
you get
heated.
Engaged in this conversation that is not even worth it.
Exactly. Everybody can say whatever they want on a little screen. A lot of times they'll say what they want to say to the person in front of them.
Right, which is unfortunate, but that is the reality.
But so it can become very drama oriented or negativity and things like that. So one way to avoid that is to use these kinds of tools that will help you still be effective in your strategy as an artist of being out there without having to
engage in those conversations.
Engage or joining in all these dramas that are out there. That's a great one. Thank you for
not a problem.
bringing that up, because that is so true. So let me wrap it up.
Yes.
For these 3 strategies to help you balance in a way, the work that you do as an artist, your social life, your personal life, and your business activities, right? That's the whole idea. All these spheres that we have to manage. So, and at the end of the day, to avoid overwhelm, so that you can live a more balanced life. The first one I talked about was habits. You have to really look at the habits that you have formed, good and bad ones, and really think about how are they helping you in your life and in your art career,
right? And
make some changes there, make some adjustments.
Yeah, if they're not that great, we have to replace them.
Yeah, or adopt some new ones, and think about those and pick ones, some ones that are fitting for you who you are as a person.
Right.
Just because something works for the next person doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. See which ones work for you, try them out, do a test, and be experimental with those, and then adapt the ones that you think that you have a benefit from. And then next one, number 2 that I talked about was priorities.
Yes.
Right? Putting priorities in your activities for the day, in your studio and outside of your studio, and really focus on those priorities. Rather than living in responsive mode to see what email comes and what do I have to answer in this particular second. The world is not going to end if you don't answer 1 email, 2 even 5 emails until tonight, perhaps. So,
and that is very important, yes.
Yeah, and I'm guilty sometimes of that. That's why I'm saying it, so that I remember. Is that, priorities are very important. And the third one is managing our social media life, which, like I said, nowadays has become a huge part of ourselves, who we are, living in this world, having access to this other sphere with relationships as well that we are managing in social media. So being strategic about that, finding tools that will help you out, like Hootsuite is one of the ones that I mentioned. There's other ones as well. Meet Edgar is another one.
Any social management software
tool, exactly, software tool that you can use that will help you, stay on track, stay on focus. And at the end of the day, my friends, is about enjoying the time that you are awake, enjoying the time that you wake up in the morning and the things that you get done throughout the day. Really enjoying the work that you do in the studio, so that you are not consumed by all the other things that you have to do outside of the studio. Because as artists, I think that we love what happens in the studio, and when we can focus there and we don't have all these other crazy distractions knocking on our heads of the things that we gotta do and do.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's the goal of this particular podcast episode, this one and the one that's coming next week. You don't want to miss it, because Dr. Yanina Gomez is going to share some really, really cool strategies as well to help us manage life and work, business, and avoid overwhelm.
Sounds like a plan.
As much as possible, right?
Yeah, as much as possible. It's impossible to live a stress-free life.
Right.
I usually tell the people I work with, I can help you with strategies to live a stress-less life, but not a stress-free life. So it's impossible. Otherwise, you are not in this world.
Exactly. Well, my friends, hope you enjoy this podcast episode. If you found it useful for your art career, please share it with another friend. Send them the link or send them to iTunes, or now also to Google Play, where you can download now the episodes as well. And thanks again for being with us, and I will see you at the next level.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.